Secondary host, lead us in.
And welcome back to the Trackpackers podcast.
Thank you, John. Now it's time for the real announcer and
Okay,
host
Becca, you
of
want
the
to start?
most. Becca, be quiet. The hostess with the mostest is talking.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Track Packers podcast for episode number 37 of season 2. Hope everyone is having a great December. It's been a few weeks since we've been together, but we will eventually have the full cast here. But for now, we have Mr. Jessup Pelkey, myself, Mason, and John Breckle with you, as Miss Becca Pelkey is tending to some other duties. But in the meantime, we'll entertain you for the time being. As always, we want to thank our presenting sponsor in 2023, Hitch Harness, and Tyler Hall out of Fertile, Minnesota. Tyler's been so much of a blessing to us here in 2023. Was gracious enough to give some Gateway National tickets, which we'll talk about a little bit here in just a second. But of course, if you're looking for some last-minute Christmas gift items, I encourage you to go over to hitchharness.com. If you're unfamiliar with Hitch Harness, focuses on safety and efficiency for receiver hitches in the back of the trucks. Really cool product that developed by Tyler, and he has other products on there as well. And so I encourage you to go over to hitchharness.com. Use promo code TRACKPACK, all lowercase, to get free shipping now until the end of the year. And so thank you so much, Tyler, for supporting us on the podcast this season. So once Becca gets here, because we did have a minor shift in the lineup from the last episode, it is an all Pelkey front row. So right now, Jessup, by default, is on the poll, followed by myself and then John. So Mr. Jessup Pelkey, our inside researcher, how are you doing?
Industry insider, Mason, industry insider, and I'm doing wonderful. We're right around the corner for the holidays here. We can't say an official holiday or we might offend people, so we will just call it the Christmas season and call it good.
There you go. Yes, it is a busy time of year, kind of trying to get all the gifts and stuff organized. Do you still have Christmas shopping left to do?
Yes, I need to figure out what I'm getting my parents.
Oh.
And seeing that I live over 8 hours away from them, it's probably going to show up after the new year.
Are you guys going back for Christmas, or are you guys staying local for Christmas?
We will be in Florida against.
Okay.
Yeah, so that'll be a good time. I plan on golfing every day and probably watching the Tulsa shootout.
That sounds like
That's
really
right.
good,
That is coming up pretty soon.
really good time.
Yeah, it should be a good time. I think, I wasn't looking forward to it. I'm a very traditionalist as when it comes to like holidays and invitational races and how series should be ran. So I was a little upset because I really want a white Christmas and snow and all that good stuff. But since we are having a brown Christmas and gray Christmas and not a white Christmas, I don't feel so bad being down in Florida now.
Yeah, I was going to say, we went on to have a white Christmas up here. At least in Fargo, where I'm at, there's not much snow on the ground currently. I don't know what it is like over in Bismarck. John, what's going on in Bismarck right now? Assuming it's about the same weather-wise.
Yeah, it's about the same. It's actually been super nice from a December standpoint. I mean, if you look at it from a year ago perspective, a year ago last week, we had that huge snowstorm that was a multi-day blizzard event across Bismarck and the state. I remember because I was still recovering from knee surgery, and was off of crutches, but I fell on the ice like 3 times on that Monday because of the fact of the matter that it was freezing rain. And then it snowed Monday night through Tuesday, Tuesday night through Wednesday, Wednesday through Thursday. And Thursday was when the wind came up really bad Thursday night, and we had like another 8 inches on the ground. I think we ended up with over 20 some inches during that snowstorm each and every just total for the last, 4 days of it last year. Which ended up like 3 inches, like 3 feet on the ground for us, on top of what we already had before that. So this year, very much different. Last week, or I would say about 2 weeks ago now, we had about 3 inches of snow that happened on a Friday. That has pretty much melted. We still have some snow here or there on grassy surfaces, and a little bit in like shaded parking lots. But besides that, pretty much everything has kind of melted off. So, like Jessup said, it's probably going to be a brown Christmas across the board from the state of North Dakota this year. However, I did look long term into the forecast, and it looks like in January we're supposed to start dipping, like a temperature standpoint. So we'll see if they're right on that or not.
It's gonna be cold and just not
And brown.
or gray or whatever it is.
So
Yeah, so I was just in California this last week, and one of my relatives out there, like they originally from northern Washington, and one of them still hasn't gotten used to like not having snow for Christmas, and so like going out there and then coming back here, I'm just like, oh man, I can count like on maybe one hand how many like not white Christmases there have been up here. So it's definitely gonna
it's been very few and far between. It kind of feels like a couple years ago when we had the very, very, very mild winter across the board too. The year of COVID, the 2020 year, winter of 2019 through 2020, that was very, very, very mild as well. So yeah, kind of definitely feels very much like that year from a snow perspective so far. Temperatures right now, we're the second warmest second warmest December that we've had on record so far here, from the month perspective, and we're over halfway done already. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, it's been nice from a weather perspective. It's been nice to, get out and about and be outside and move around and experience things. But I'm kind of like you guys. I do miss the snow on the ground.
Yeah. I'm more of like, I would love to see it for Christmas, and then once like the New Year starts, I'm just like, okay, now I'm looking forward to spring. So it's like, Well, obviously we're here to talk racing, and so if you in the audience would like to do us a favor, be sure to like, share, comment on your thoughts on the latest and greatest in racing. Obviously, we've had a lot of dialogue over the last few weeks because we finished our power rankings a few weeks ago. It's actually been very entertaining looking at some of the comments and some interesting points brought up. And so definitely a talking point amongst the racing community. But if you're on the streaming platforms, be sure to give us a 5-star review. There has been some 5-star reviews on Spotify, but not on Apple yet.
Oh, okay. So we need to have a couple on Apple, so then Jessup can read those reviews.
I want to read the 5-star on Spotify.
Well, there's no captions.
There's no comment.
Yeah.
Well, that's no fun. Well, I will make them up as we go. First one is from Joe Schmo, and John and Jessup carry the show. Mason is the straw that stirs it slightly together, and Becca is the creamer to the coffee. But mainly
Honestly,
John and Jessup carry the show.
I know Brody Carlos would give us
Joe.
a 5-star review on Spotify. He told me that. So we appreciate the support, Brody. So we'll give Becca a little bit of time to get in here, but we'll drop the green flag and officially start episode number 37. Why don't we get right into the track pack report from the Gateway Dirt Nationals? Because I know all of us took in a little bit of it. So I'll kind of go to John first. John, what was your takeaways from the Gateway Dirt Nationals this year?
Okay, so I have quite a few actually takeaways from this. So the first takeaway was I was surprised at how wide the track truly was this year from a racing perspective. I know they added a few little, banking wise and a few changes from like where the walls were from entrances from, turn 2 to turn 3. But a lot of the, racing action that I had watched or even, participated in was years past. The track was definitely, it would widen out as the night went on. And it was very much kind of that, that middle groove to bottom groove, kind of from how the racing perspective was. This year, a lot of it was running the wall. I mean, they were high, wide, and handsome right next to the wall this year. And that was actually kind of fun to see because they were bouncing it off the wall. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of reminded me a little bit, Mason, especially the World of All LA models. When we watched them in I-94
Yes.
back
Yeah.
in July, when they were banging off the walls over there too, it reminded me of watching the late models down at Gateway, doing the exact same thing down there as well. So yeah, so that part was kind of fun to see. Second thing is there was quite a bit of carnage in the heat races and qualifiers. So that
Yeah, but
part,
that's not really new though.
no, that part's not new,
That is
but it's one of
tradition.
the part. It's kind of tradition based, and it's one of the parts too that I noticed. I was like, wow, there's a lot of guys getting beaten, banged up, and damaged, and other things happening, especially on Saturday in the last chance races to get into the big show. On several of those races. Now the features. Features on Thursday. Thursday track was quite smooth on Thursday night. Kind of got single filed out a little bit. Um, I watched basically both feature events, and they were still decent in my opinion. I mean, they were not bad by any means. I do think, and I'm going to make the statement across the board kind of on this too. I feel like the mod features kind of took the show this past year. The mods put
This
on a
year?
great show. Um,
I
kind
think
of each
so.
night across the board. So I feel like the mods really had a really good week down there in Gateway. Friday was definitely more moisture into the track, a little
Kayla
bit more
showed up.
rough and tumbly a little bit. It definitely had more character into the racing surface, but it was really racy, and a lot of fun to watch on that too. I mean, the qualifying features on Friday night, both A mains for the mods and the late models were super entertaining, and a lot of fun to watch. And then Saturday overall, I watched the feature events, and those were a lot of fun. Watching there too, and talk about some movers and shakers during those events too. Some of our local guys, our Wasota guys up here, you had Joey Thomas, who went 14th to 6th in that feature event, and then you had Tyler Peterson, who got in on a provisional, started 20th because he had problems in his qualifier, and started 20th and ended up 8th. So I mean, there was definitely some moving going on within those feature events on that really tight track. I mean, that's a small tight track as well, but yeah, it was really entertaining to watch, especially the battle for the lead in both the late model race towards the end of it between Shepard and Ricky Thornton Jr. And then again in the mods. I mean, that was a really entertaining race to watch, as they were three wide there for the lead a little bit within that mod A main. So overall, I thought it was a fun week down in Gateway. Um, I thought the racing was very entertaining to watch. And it was really neat to see that the track itself was definitely more the high side dominant this year compared to what it has been in years past. And that part was kind of entertaining because to do slide jobs on that small track, it's very entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
And them trying to do slide jobs, especially with the late models with a much bigger car than a modified.
Yeah. It was definitely entertaining to watch. Jessup, what about you?
You know, I really wish they would take out that lower wall, the cement barriers on the low side
Agreed.
of the track, because I kind of liked when they used to push the tire further and further in, and then all of a sudden you see half the car on the cement. But that's just a personal preference for me. I think that shows hard racing. I thought the racing was pretty good. There was something weird. I think they figured out how to give them a smooth track, but I think they have to walk a really fine line because when you think of dirt in December, you think of carnage and
Mhm.
a bunch of the best being there. And those guys have accepted the fact that it's probably going to be carnage. And um, the first time I thought it was good, but then I thought the features got kind of meh. Like they went into single file mode and everyone just ran the top, and it was like, hey, there's a cushion and there's nothing on the bottom, or it didn't look like there was much on the bottom because 90% of the field stayed up high, and that was it.
Or almost
But
like Jessup, they could run side by side, but they couldn't pass.
yeah, that'd be fair. A good way to explain it. The other one, Friday night, Kayla must have showed up at the dome because all of a sudden there was moisture in the track, and it was like watching the dirt in December, dirt races again, where cars were hopping around and it was getting western real quick, and we clearly separated the men from the boys, and a lot of stuff started getting crumpled up. So I thought Friday was a little better than Thursday night, and feature wise on Saturday, I thought the late models were better. To be honest, I thought a late model feature definitely was really exciting with Ricky running down Bishop, and I was really tempting to pick Drake Troutman for the mods, but I mean it's Ricky. It's tough to pick against Ricky, and but both races were really good, and I think it was another successful year. One aspect I really like, especially with the late models, is the drawing of like what you're getting for a field, and I think it's really cool, and it's very unique compared to a lot of other bigger late model races around the nation, because you had high plane late models there from the Colorado guys. You had Wasota late models there. You had both Lucas and World of Outlaw guys there, and then you had the Mars guys, and then UMP, and there it was a really cool field of drivers there, and I thought our guys did really well this year. I mean, um, I don't I don't think any of ours made the feature per se. When I say ours, I would say like Wasota guys, but I thought Zach Walters, Jungle Boy, did really good. He was throwing haymakers with the best of them, and I thought he gave a good showing for himself. It was unfortunate Lindsay got ran over a couple times, but I thought Lindsay had a pretty nice weekend in general. And then for mods, I mean, Joey Thomas had a great weekend, real quiet under the radar. He just worked his way up to sixth, and then TPO had a good ending to his weekend. I mean, and Brandon Kopp, until he decided to plow through the fence, which I know it's not his choice, but he was leading the what was the last chance qualifier to get in.
Yep.
Yep.
Last
So, I
lap.
mean,
When you're in,
I mean, if you look, I mean, I thought our guys did really well down there.
Yeah. Yeah. They definitely put on a good performance down there. Yeah. I'm surprised there wasn't more like drivers from up here in the late models that didn't go down there. I mean, I guess when you're going against a bunch of super late models, that might deter, but
it really doesn't matter because I think it was Simple of the high plane late models. They're not a greater known late model series, but he still had what I would say a very well. How would I? It was
you represented the
well,
series really well.
yeah, I thought. Thank you, John. I thought he did a really nice job, and it wasn't like he was. I mean, you could tell they may have been outclassed a little compared to say Brandon Shepard's whole. I can't even say their dang shocks right now. I want to say Holstein, but it's Bilstein shocks and the Black Rifle Company. I mean, those are major sponsorships, and he's got the Master of Longhorn with them too. So, I mean, comparing what they were up against, I thought the Wasota guys did really well. I thought the High Plain guys did really well. So it's a very level playing surface of a track. I think if they keep a lot of moisture in it versus when it's a slick, smooth track.
And I would agree with that too. Thursday, I hate to use the word boring, but to me it was a little boring on Thursday. I'm like,
it was like a choo-choo train.
Yeah, I was like, this is not like how people know the dome to be dirt in December. And so when Friday and Saturday came around, it's just like, okay, this is more of Gateway Dirt Nationals type racing. And so yeah, you got to have a fine line too. It's just like you don't want to have it be a Baja necessarily, but you want to make it at least entertaining for those in attendance, which there were a lot of fans in attendance. Was it a sellout?
Well,
they opened up.
Was.
But yeah, they opened up the upper section of the dome, which I think is the first year that they had to do that in the seven years of running it. because they had a really large crowd this year compared to
just-
even what it was, which I mean is awesome to see that there was a ton of people up here from our local area that even went down. So that was kind of really nice to see too.
Yeah, I just
Well-
remember going through Snapchats the entire weekend. I'm just like, man, everybody and their mother is down there.
I would say it is what I would describe as a spectacle. And I think that's what draws the people. Everyone wants to see good racing. But if you get a spectacle of a race, which includes good racing, then it's like the cherry on top. And it's one of the events that at some point, if it keeps coming back, people need to go see, I think. But yeah, I mean, the Double Deuces team, they looked like they had a wild time down there. And everyone who went, they should thank us for sending the Rainmaker, the bringer of rain, the peasant.
Yes.
You didn't
peasant.
actually end up going though.
Well, her presence must have been there somehow because the moisture is what made the racing a lot better.
Well, I won't argue with that part of it.
Mason was flying back over. That's what it was.
Not at that point. I was already back by that time.
See, it's the after effect of the blowing in of the storm.
Trying to remember, where was my layover at? I don't even. Oh, I flew into Minneapolis. So yeah, kind of.
That's pretty close, Mason. That's
I'd
pretty
say that's
close.
Not too far off, I guess.
The jet
But-
stream right over it.
Right
Yes.
over it. Yeah, but big congrats out to the winners from Saturday. Obviously, Brandon Shepard held off hard charging Ricky Thornton in the super late models. That was entertaining to watch through lap traffic. And then in the modifieds, Drake Troutman. I know Ricky Thornton was fast there too. Mike Harrison was chasing him down and kind of, messed up once, and Ricky kind of saved him and then had to regroup and try to run him back down, but just ran out of time, I think. But big congrats to Drake Troutman. I think he's either 18 or 19 years old, if I remember from
18.
the broadcast. Yeah, so very young UMP modified driver. And so congrats out to those two. And then also our local drivers that went down. We already mentioned Brandon Cobb, Lindsey Hansen, Joseph Thomas, Tyler Peterson, Scott Benz made the Thursday night qualifier. I don't believe he made the overall qualifier. And then also the Millennial Farmer, Zach Johnson, was down there too. So really good representation from our local guys. And then you have like the IMCA guys like Tim Ward and Jordan Grabowski, who were very competitive as well. So very nice competitive mixture of cars there for the Gateway Dirt Nationals. Jessup, have you been to that race? I haven't been to that race yet.
Yes, I have. I was there the very first year, and it was wild, and they did qualifying, and I will say a lot of you don't have a great enough of appreciation of how well it runs now compared to what it was. Like the first year, they had like double qualifying, and they had the CO2 issues, so it made like qualifying. Oh my God, it was insane. They had to rework the track so many times. And I think they were trying to get the qualifying heats for the mods done Thursday night. So the heat started somewhere around, I think, 1:30 in the morning.
Oh,
Yeah.
Holy cow.
I mean, now here's the thing. The first, I remember seeing the visual, like, still stamped in my brain of the first cars going out there, and it was Daryl Lanigan. And when he stomped it it was quote unquote virgin soil. So I don't know if they'd actually had anyone test it or not from earlier in the week, but that was the first time they had any cars on the track. And he ripped up rooster tails at least 20 to 30 feet up in the air, and the place went just berserks for that. And then the rest of the weekend, it was Baja 1000.
Mhm.
And it was cool.
yeah. That's the one time people are probably like happy that it's like it was like super rough. I mean, it wasn't
It had
anywhere
character, Mason. Character.
Sorry.
But that was the year that they had, I think it was the Friday night show, had the late model race of the year. With Bloomquist going down onto the cement, And then they had like 3 cars battling for first going into the last 2 laps, and it was a pretty wild race. So for me, wild. And it was
Yeah,
also the year
one
I
of these
brought
years I got to get down there.
that was also the year I brought a 30 pack of Busch Light in my jacket and somehow made it through security.
I assume they've probably gotten a little bit smarter with that kind of stuff too.
I don't know. I haven't been there lately, so we're gonna have to figure out how to get stuff in.
Well, best of
But
luck to you on that again.
But you got to think, Mason. I was there from like 11:30 in the morning, or like 1 in the afternoon, to about 2:30 when we finally said "F it," we're walking out because they were going to do another track prep. And so that's like 13 hours of sitting there buying $10 beers.
Oof.
So if you buy a 30 pack at that time, it was like $20 or something like that. And each can of beer is $10 basically. And you got 30 of them, that's $300. You net profits $280.
Yeah. Smart thinking.
Yep.
Well, I think that's a great way to end our recap on the Gateway Dirt Nationals. That, like I said, 7th annual. Maybe one of these next couple years we'll be able to go down. I always go to California during that time, so it's always tough to kind of balance that or going down to St. Louis. And usually I kind of just enjoy having almost the full off season to kind of relax and just watch from home. So, but yeah, that's our Gateway Dirt Nationals recap. I believe we should probably get into who or what are we repping before we get into the meat of our episode. And so
I would agree.
Mr. John Breckel, who or what are you repping for episode number 37?
Well, I went old school today. So I went back a little bit in time. Actually, I almost went back 20 years in time with the shirt that I am wearing. So I decided that, a couple weeks ago, NASCAR made the announcement that the Iowa race is sold out when they're going there this year for the first time for the Cup Series. So that's kind of going to be a very cool event. They also announced some of the singers that are going to be down there during that weekend here just recently. So I went with a 2004 Rusty Wallace shirt back when Rusty was racing the Blue Deuce for Penske. So Rusty was my favorite NASCAR driver for many, many, many years. And I was like, I kind of throw back to, and I threw back to Rusty, as well as he was one of those individuals involved kind of with the formation of the Iowa racetrack down there. So yeah, so it'll be a fun event here for NASCAR this year when they head over to Iowa.
Yeah, I wanted to look up because I can't remember exactly what year it opened up. I want to say around 2006 or something like that, or
maybe I don't even remember off the top of my head.
I gotta look here real quick. It's a 7/8 mile track, which is not like really any other racetrack on the NASCAR circuit. So it's really cool. September 2006 was when they opened up with, looks like the USAR Hooters Pro Cup was their first.
Oh yes, the Pro Cup series. Those used to be a fun series to watch too. They used to be on Speed Channel on I think it used to be Wednesday or Thursday night. And then they would rerun really late at night. And I used to watch that series all the time on Speed Channel back in the day. But yeah, no, that track, it was kind of built off of a Richmond a little bit, but they wanted it to be completely different from a corner perspective as well. So it's not really based off of a whole lot of anything else from what was out there.
Yep, and the Xfinity Series has raced there several times. I think the Truck Series has also raced there too.
Yeah, the truck has been there. The trucks have been there several times as well.
And the NASCAR weekend is basically June 14th through the 16th. Actually, ARCA is on June 14th, and then the Xfinity is the 15th, and Cup is the 16th. So with it being sold out, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of dirt racing fans there too.
Oh, for sure. It'll be a big weekend.
Yeah, so that'll be a fun one to tune into that weekend. And so cool shirt. Nice throwback back to the good old days of NASCAR.
Right. I agree.
Jessup, who or what are you repping?
Well, I'm continuing on the line of obscurity. I was told I should not use irrelevance, as it may be slightly degrading to those who we be representing or wearing. So obscurity, meaning that it is very obscure to our area. And this is Chaff Racing, Chaff. I don't know. They're from Lincoln, Nebraska. The only one that still races right now is Ashley, who races an IMCA modified. So it's kind of a cool shirt. It's got a sport mod, it's got a mod, it's got a sport compact on it, and the back just has a boatload of all their sponsors on it. So kind of a different shirt, something unique.
Yeah, multiple cars on that shirt. That's awesome to see. Yeah, I don't totally recognize the name, so definitely an obscure racing family.
Yes.
For some reason, when I think of the 95 down in like the Nebraska area, I think of there was like a one race like for the spring nationals, I think, in Beatrice with like a 95, and I can't remember what his name was, but it's not Shaft. But regardless, cool shirt, Jessup. I'll finish off.
What are you wearing?
Well, this shirt is there's not really a tie to anything specifically, but it's been sticking out in my group of shirts for like the last several weeks. So I figure I should wear it. And it's a really cool shirt. I have the long sleeve shirt for Aaron Beyer Racing, number 4B with Soda Midwest Modified. I believe he had these out this last year, and you can see his car on the back. It's a very popular shirt in the pits. I see a lot of drivers and people in the pits wearing his shirt, and so it's been pretty consistent in the Midwest Modified. I don't know if he's gotten a win yet. I know he's gotten a win or two, but he's gotten
wins. Yep.
Yeah, it's been a while, but he's always a consistent front runner. Kind of keeps his nose clean, and it's usually a kind of like a hidden like driver to watch in the future races. And so I don't know what his plans are for this next year, but it's always fun to talk with Aaron in the pits. He's kind of one of those nice, quiet guys that you get to know him, and it's a fun guy to hang around. So repping Aaron Beyer for episode number 37 of the Track Packers. So minus Becca, I think we will get into the meat of our episode. And with this being likely our last episode before the new year, it's time to hand out some awards, kind of do a best of show. And so last year we did some best of awards, kind of giving shout outs to drivers or tracks that had a really good year or had something special go on. And so we have several different awards that we're kind of going to go through. And so why don't we kick things off with the best race of 2023? A lot of these were very difficult for me to kind of narrow it down. And so who wants to go first with their best race of 2023? Does it have to be in person? Could be something you watch.
Does it have to be in North Dakota or the Midwest, or is it anywhere?
No. There's no rule books on this because it's way too hard to regulate.
Well, let's see. I would say a good one for me would be the Volusia race we took in, where Hudson O'Neill went from 20th to or 16th to first.
Yeah, something like that. That was a really good race.
So I would say my first race of the year was really good. The other one I would say would be the Red River Valley World of Outlaw Sprint Car Show, where it wasn't so much the race for the lead, it was the fact that 2nd through 8th were all within like a second of each other. So and I think it was it Bill Rose who refused to let anyone pass, so it made an absolute mess.
Yep.
And that led to a lot of frustration back in the pits as Gio Selzy threw his helmet through the holler and screamed the F-bomb as loud as he could, and both of us kind of chuckled and giggled.
It was a very entertaining race, and it was caution-free.
Yeah, yes. It was a fun night.
Yeah. Yep. Really good show. Yeah, those are two really good races. I was thinking that too when we were down in Volusia. I'm like, dang, it's going to be really hard to top that late model race from Volusia for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that was pretty tough. But I think those two, just off the top of my head, would be my two favorite races.
Yeah, I'd agree with both of those. John, what about you?
Okay, so I've got two as well. I attended both these ones in person, so I'm going to go with the ones that I also was at. First one is going to be the Minnesota Street Stock feature event at the Championship Night at the Sites Memorial. And that was the race that Hunter Carter came from 24th tail end to win and beat Cole Aggressive by basically bumped the line that night over in Grand Forks. So that race was super good, very entertaining to watch. And it was very, very much kind of fun to watch Hunter kind of work his way through the field. As I believe his transmission blew after that race was done as well. So that was a fun race to watch. The other race that was fun for me to participate in this year that I watched as well would have been the IMC modified race back from, I believe it was June 18th in Jamestown, June 17th or June 18th. I believe it maybe was the 17th in Jamestown. And that was the race that it was between Cody Peterson, John Nord, and Lucas Rodin. And Cody Peterson picked up the win up the line with John Nord and Lucas Rodin right behind him side by side. They were 3 wide going into turn 3 on the last lap. And that race was just really entertaining to watch and a lot of fun to watch too, because those drivers were using all different lines of the Jamestown Speedway to where they were high, bottom, and they were also in the middle. So that was a fun race to watch and participate in. I got to watch it from the announcer stand. Jessica got to watch it from the flag stand on that one, and that one was just a very interesting race. And congratulations to Cody Peterson, who picked up his first win in Jamestown during that time frame.
Yeah, when you were telling me about that race, I was like, dang, that sounds like a really awesome race. And you don't get to see a lot of 3 wide racing all the way down to the wire. And so that's awesome. That was such a great race. And I agree, listening into Hunter Carter's race in Grand Forks is also a big moment too. Awesome. I'll put 2 more in. I was trying to think of a second one. The first one I thought of was one of the Street Stock Tour races over at Cheyenne Speedway. This one particularly was on June 8th. It was a 3 wide battle once again. It was between 2 of the Carters, Todd and Johnny, and also Kyle Anderson. And they raced 3 wide for several laps throughout that race, swapping the lead back and forth. And Todd ended up picking the feature win up there. And man, it was awesome to see the crowd on their feet and kind of cheering loudly throughout the entirety of the race. And I was, with some of these best races, I was trying to figure out, like, okay, what's like versus like the best finish, what's like the best race? And that race in all its totality, they were side by side throughout that entirety of that race. And so that was one of my favorites. And I think my second one that really sticks out is the Wissota Classic race up at Grand Rapids Speedway on Labor Day weekend. The Challenge Series there was and of course, it was kind of like one of those longer races, obviously with the Challenge Series, and it's kind of like slowly developing as the cars were kind of going through lap traffic. I'm trying to remember who was, I think it was Kevin Burdick that was leading the majority of that race. And then they had like Ryan Michelson, Jeff Massengill, kind of tracking them down through lap traffic, and feel like the lead swapped almost two or 3 times within about a lap. And Jeff Massengill made the sneak attack to get the win at the line for that race. And so that was a really, really fun race to watch, because that had a long green flag run to finish it out. So you could kind of just see the anticipation building up slowly as they got close to the finish. And so those are the 2 of the races that stick out to me.
Nice. That was a really good race. Last corner at the checkered flag pass finish. It was pretty good.
Yeah, and that's what you want. You want a good race throughout and kind of see like how things are going to progress throughout the end, kind of similar to the Gateway Dirt Nationals. It's like lap traffic kind of gets in the way a little bit, and you never know how they're going to maneuver. And so that makes things entertaining, especially in late models.
I would say that would lead me to one of my best moments of the year, just for my pure entertainment. I had a couple pure entertainment moments. The announcer at Grand Rapids, I know some people really don't like him, but I really don't care. I think he's amusing as all get out. He isn't a cookie cutter announcer that some people just want to hear constantly. But the 2 takeaways, was when he would say super stocks, it would be the super stocks. That was good. And then my personal favorite, the Midwest Smackdown for the Midwest mods, and it was awesome because they did lay the smackdown on each other that night, and that was probably one of my favorite moments, next to I think my other favorite moment was with John, and John knows exactly the moment I'm going to say here was the opening night of the Tougher Than Dirt tour, watching uh, a lot. Just it was a good night of racing, but for the ferocity that the hobby stocks started their race off was it was eye opening because they raced for $400 and somebody jumped the inside berm on the green flag coming out of corner 4. They raced through the infield, and I think it was Bombardo, ended up like second at the line off the green flag to start the race. And I didn't know if I felt safe, amused, electrified, or all of the above. And John had the same look on his face, and we looked at each other like, what in the world are we watching?
Plus, we sat down pretty low in the grandstands that night, so we were like right next to the guardrail when this whole thing was happening.
Yeah, I think those were my two personal favorite moments, excluding you guys coming down to or over to the Silver 1000 and Mason going to Volusia with us.
Well, I was gonna say one of my favorite moments, and we can just kind of go with this best moments because I was trying to figure out best moments, but one of them was actually at the Silver 1000, just because the pure entertainment of just being at that race with us 4 being there. A couple of situations. Well, one, when John and I went for a walk around the outside of turns 3 and 4, we were like, hey, this is a really cool spot to watch. Let's sit here right off of turn 4. Literally like a half a lap, and we could just get pelted with clay and dirt. Just absolutely pelted.
And I couldn't figure out why nobody was sitting there. I was like, this is actually a really good spot. And then we got pelted, and I was like, it's still a really good spot. So, but yeah, no, it was a lot of entertainment. That was one of my favorite moments from 2023 as well. Was all of us taking in the Silver 1000 and the road trip getting to Fargo and getting then to Duluth. And then also the the pure entertainment that we had when we were podcasting that Wednesday night before we hit the road on Thursday to go over, and yeah, it was just a lot of fun.
That was good too. That was a good show.
Well, keep in mind though, we saw some of the worst racing ever at the Silver 1000.
Oh yes, especially with the mods. I mean, that had to be by far the worst race ever, according to some non-educated fans.
I thought it was pretty neat.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was good racing. The sarcasm there is one of my friends from back in Duluth wandered up to our truck because we were parked at pretty much about 20 yards before the entrance of 3. And after the race, my friend wandered up and he's like, I can't believe that's got to be the worst race that I've ever seen. I can't believe I paid money to see this. Meanwhile, Dan Ebert did have a very strong stranglehold on first. Meanwhile, there's like 7 cars going AWOL for second through like 7th, and they're slicing and dicing, and all of a sudden we're informed it's the worst race he's ever seen. And I looked at them and I'm like, I don't think it was that bad.
He probably was just upset Dan Ebert was staking up the show.
It could have been, but worst race ever.
Worst race ever.
I mean, it was by far the worst race ever. Johnny Brookings only moved up 11 spots in that feature event. Went, from 14th to 3rd during that race. And yeah, I mean, there was really no passing otherwise within that feature event, which is very much sarcasm on my part as well.
I would say my other favorite moment, would be the season opener up in Estevan, just going through the gates and just getting like bombarded with welcome from like fans and like board members, the drivers, because like that was basically their first race since COVID, like allowing them like Americans to cross the border and be able to race and enjoy racing up there in Estevan. They were so appreciative of all the people that came across the border, and they had a really good season up there. And I think every week they were very appreciative of everyone that came through. fans showed up. Like the stands were packed that night too, and so that was one of my favorite moments as well.
Yeah, those are good times. A lot of good memories this year. A lot of good things happened.
Yeah, John, did you have any other best moments before we move on to the next award?
Oh, we had a lot of shenanigans that happened this year across the board from a lot of the races that we were at, just from the four of us. So yeah, so there was a lot of really good moments for this year. The silver obviously was a lot of fun. Um, we all had a great time going through during Oktoberfest in Mandan as well. All of us were very much all over the place, let's put it that way. And then even the season openers, because Mason joined us for the first night of Mandan's opener back at the beginning of May, and we were very much all up for shenanigans that night as well. And then one of my favorite moments from this year too was when, and you don't see this happen too often, but when we were at the Stampede and we blew the fuses for the announcer's stand
Oh my gosh, that was
up
the
on top
nightmare.
of night one. That was definitely a very entertaining moment as well, that you never usually participate in. So yeah, we had a lot of shenanigans happen this year across the board, and a lot of
Mason,
memorable moments.
Mason, I got one for you.
Go ahead.
So I will say this as a broad stroke comment. I think whenever we get our entire group together to go to a race, it is a wild time.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have way too much fun at races when all of us are together. I think one of the funniest moments or funniest themes to our race weekend was down at Volusia. You, I, and Becca were all having the safest driver competition.
Jeez.
So what did we have? A Prius?
Yeah, I think it was a Prius.
So we got a rental car Prius, in which like all the race fans were like, "Boo! You gotta get a fast car. No, get a car that you can just log a billion miles on like $4 of gas. It doesn't matter." But our dumb car, we're driving. I can't remember how we found it, but it was like it had a safety driving rating. So there's no competitive nature within this group.
Ever.
So next thing you know, we're doing laps around the hotel to see who can have the safest driving rating, and I believe there was a certain individual who won.
So it was such a stupid competition. I don't know if you can even come up with a winner for it.
It was very simple, Mason. Who had the highest safety rating?
Well, half of mine didn't even register.
Oh, that's because you scored too low.
I was just saying that's because you were unsafe.
Very unsafe. But I always enjoy our road trips, and anytime we can just get together at the track, because it's always some sort of shenanigans happening, and I enjoy that. I need that throughout the year.
We need to do another Huset's trip.
Houston would be fun. We should go to Mississippi
yes, we do.
Thunder.
Mississippi Thunder would also be a good
I
one
think
too.
we should go to Mississippi Thunder for that. The big
mod
deal.
one?
Yeah, it's been
It's
a while
the-
since I've traveled for a
The
mod.
first weekend of June.
Oh shoot!
It's the May 20th, 31st,
Oh.
and June 1st trip, which would be perfect timing for us.
Is that over? No, that's not over. What do you call it? Memorial Day.
I think Memorial Day weekend's a weekend before.
That's the weekend after.
Crap. We can make that work. All the tracks can figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be a fun one.
Yeah.
Awesome. So a lot of good moments from the year. Get back to my little sheet here. Most improved driver. What do you want to give a shout out for most improved this year? I got a few.
I think
Mason, you start. Maybe you should start. And then Justin and I can chime in.
So my first one actually goes to Haley Lee. She had a really, really good season. Got a few feature wins. Was running up in the top 2, 3 so many times. She actually got a lot of seconds this year. really stepped up her game, and she's really excited for this next year. I think she's going to be still in the Midwest Modified heading into 2024, but was really awesome to see her break into victory lane. The first one of the year was at Viking Speedway on Memorial Day weekend, and she was the class of the field. No one could really touch her, and so carried that all the way through the end of the year. Did really well at the invitational part of the season as well. So that would be my first one. Cole Gressett's another one. He's really stepped up his game too. I believe he won 2 track championships at I-94 and Buffalo River, and so he had a really strong 2023 campaign as well. And I don't want to take them all, but the other one I had was Xander Compson. I think Xander's really stepped up his game too, and him and his brother both are really turning into a couple of the top legends around our area. And so those will be 3 I'd shout out for most improved.
I was going to do Colin. Colin Thompson was going to be one of mine because he picked up a number of feature wins this year, was battling for multiple track championships, and just one of those drivers that was always up front. He had been up front kind of in that maybe that 5th to 10th area for a lot of races, but this year it was more he was right in the battle for the lead on everything for Colin. So Colin was definitely one that I would say was one of my most improved drivers of the season for sure when it came down to to feature wins and battling for up front and just doing really well across the board. One of the other drivers that I had actually on my plate for most improved maybe this year or definitely improving up there would also be Jordan Sowers. Jordan Sowers was another driver that was really strong this year, battling for multiple wins. He was actually battling for 2 track championships this year too, and leading points at those tracks too, across the board. And yeah, so he had a strong year. He was top 3 at the Stockhurst Stampede in Jamestown at the end of the year. So Jordan Sowers was one that I put into my bucket for being most improved this year as well.
Those are a couple good ones. Yeah. Jessup, you got a couple?
Jessup, I'll let you go, and I can chime in again if I have another one.
I'll go further east and give the East people some attention here. Kennedy Swan is a name that gets said a lot. I know she gets a lot of flowers, as the hip kids say these days. But she first year in a Wissota Modified, she did really well, and I'm sure there's other people out there that are doing really well too. But for being that young and to make a jump from Midwest Mod to having success in a Wissota Mod, that's really impressive. Other areas that I think other people that have done pretty well this year, I would say, this is gonna sound like probably a weird one, but you gotta say TPO did really good.
Oh yes,
for
rookie and then late models.
Year, won the Wissota Rookie of the Year for the late models, and then he won the late models for Wissota. So you can't say that's not impressive. Going further east and north, you got to look over at Thunder Bay. I mean, John Topazzini put a pretty good year together for. I don't want to speak for him, but I thought he put a really good year together for himself. So yeah, I think those would be my people.
Definitely some good ones there. Kind of covering some areas that maybe we don't get to see a whole lot. John, did you have one or two more?
Yeah, the only other one I think that I would really put into the list as well for, a driver that picked up a ton of feature wins this year too. I have to throw it out to Tucker Peterson. Tucker really stepped up his game across the board this year too. I mean, Tucker would do a little bit of traveling in years past, but this year, I mean, he traveled a ton to a ton of new tracks and picked up a variety of feature wins. And he's moving up next year from a street stock, so he'll be a Rookie of the Year contender in his next division. I'm not going to announce it off the board yet, but that'll be kind of exciting to see him as well into that new class and picking up right where he left off from the Wissota street stocks.
All good ones, and there's definitely a lot of drivers that have really stepped up their game through 2023, and it'll be interesting to see who all makes a switch in class for 2024 and who really kind of brings their game up even more. We'll switch gears a little bit and go to best racetrack. What racetrack do you want to give a shout out to this year?
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
Hmm.
I got two.
Well, I
I have,
I
I
guess
have,
I would have to
I
say
have two.
I would say Thunder Bay.
Thunder Bay
mean-
is one I was thinking of.
They get an insane car count. Their 50/50s are insane. They got great fan following right now. They're checking off all the boxes that they need to, and um, I mean that's what you got to do, right?
Yeah, and they have. I don't know if there's a lot of big events, but I know they were fortunate. One of the weekends, I think they were the only big event running, and so they had a lot of fans and a lot of drivers show up. And I've watched a couple races, and they put out some pretty good racing. It's a little bit of a flatter track, so it's different racing than what you probably normally see at a lot of the high bank tracks around our area. But definitely a place that a lot of drivers have said, like, you get treated well when you go there, and like it's a great atmosphere. And so even though it's a haul for us being down here in North Dakota, it'd be fun to make a trip up there.
Yeah, I have to give a shout out to Estevan because I believe they put on some really good racing this year across the board. For what events they had and what they held, and then obviously the Mod Tour show was really, really, really good up there from a lot of passing and a lot of great track surface perspective, and yeah, they just had a really good year overall, especially allowing now with the border being back open, like Mason had mentioned, and more people can travel up there. That Estevan had a very, very nice year.
Yeah, and I will say kind of an honorable mention to best moments, like Cody Schulp winning the Mod Tour race up in Estevan. That was pretty big.
Yeah, yep, for sure.
I would say my track of the year would probably go to Fiesta City Speedway. They've been doing a lot of improvements at that racetrack, kind of reshaping mainly corners 3 and 4, try to get that racetrack a little bit better. They do a really good job of taking care of their drivers. I believe they drivers kind of get in for free to race, and so kind of helps bring in more crew members, fans. Anytime I was there, the stands were pretty well packed there, and so very nice group of people down there in Montevideo, Minnesota. Kind of a little foreshadowing to the blooper reel. Jessup is just got to remind you, Fiesta City Speedway is located in Montevideo, Minnesota. Just so you know.
Yes, yep. Just to let you know that too. Yep,
You have one bad night, and that's all people remember.
that's true.
Unfortunately, that is true.
It's so true.
That is very true. But Fiesta City Speedway had a really good year. I'm excited to go back there next year and really enjoy hanging out with Juanita, Jordan, and Brittany, and all the rest of the crew down there.
Mm-hmm.
So
that'd be our best racetrack. Kind of me.
Mason, I have to give some honorable mentions though for best racetrack. So, Viking Speedway, they have really stepped up their game the last couple of years from a track prep perspective and racetrack perspective, and they've had some really, really, really nice racing across the board here the last couple of years, and great job to them. They've really, really, really brought Viking back to where when Viking was kind of in its, I don't want to say direct prime, but right around that mid 2000 to even 2010, 2011, 2012 era as well, that they had a lot of really good racing. So great job to Viking Speedway on there as well. Several tracks across the state of North Dakota, I have to kind of lump them together as one and tell them that they've done a really good job. A lot of those tracks have been doing a lot of improvements to help facility as a whole and even improve the fan experience, the driver experience, and everything else. So great job to those North Dakota tracks as well. I'm going to lump them all together as one because a lot of those tracks in North Dakota are doing a bunch of improvements and everything else to get fans more interactive, get drivers back to enjoying the racing atmosphere. And it's definitely showing.
Yep, definitely improving all throughout the year. I will say I'll kind of piggyback on Viking Speedway because they do a really good job of getting their show done really efficiently, and they always have a horde of people going into the pits after the races. There's always a line of fans kind of waiting for the gate to open, and they all kind of funnel across, and they're usually done by like 9:45, 10 o'clock. And so people get to hang around in the pits with the drivers for half hour, 45 minutes, whatever it may be, and long into the night. So it's always really good to have an efficient show like that. So before we get into our last few serious awards, Casey Usatis commented, because I kind of put a post out there on maybe some other fun awards that we could kind of spitball a little bit. what was the worst wreck you saw this year? Because I didn't really think about this too much, but I'm trying to think. I didn't really see too many rough wrecks besides maybe the one at the Wasota 100, John, with
Yeah,
Kurt
that one was pretty
Myers.
good. Yeah, Kurt Myers was that was pretty bad in the super stocks. He flipped right at the front straightaway, right by the flag stand. And he went up. I mean, he went
Mhm.
straight up in the air when he was flipping too. Matt Dosh, that wreck back on Oktoberfest with the street stocks, that one was pretty bad. That was one of the worst ones I've seen in quite some time as well. Corey Seekerson's wreck in the Legends at the Stampede.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah. There were
That
some
one
good
was
ones.
a bad one. I was thinking of Chris Welk's flip too at Jamestown.
Oh yeah,
That
was
one
another
wasn't
one.
pretty either.
That was another one on opening night.
I would say there were a handful at Red River for the Danny Schlafer IMCA 305 Race Saver Memorial. I can't remember who they were, but they took some pretty wild tumbles.
I want to say, wasn't Swangler? No, that was in the B main that he
Yeah, we were
flipped.
sitting right there, and
Yeah,
we
because
both
we
looked
almost
at
got shrapnel or debris flying at us.
that was another one where we both looked at each other before the race, and I kind of giggled and said, "We're in danger."
Kind of like the night in Underwood
And
with Jessup and I.
sure enough, it, had it been a little further down the track, we would have been squarely in the danger zone.
Yeah, that was they had quite a few red flags in that Race Saver sprint race. I remember that was a long race because I think they had like 2 or 3 red flags. They had like a flip in one corner and then a fire in the like an opposite part of the track. It was a crazy
And they
race.
had a couple guys. No, that was the first wreck. We had a flip over in corner 2, and then someone pulled it down into the infield. So you could see all the fire people running over to the guy who was perfectly fine and getting out of his car or in corner 2. Meanwhile, down in the infield next to the fire truck is a sprint car that's on fire.
Yeah, definitely a crazy night of racing, which actually kind of transitioned into one of the other suggestions that Casey had was best finish, because that finish of the IMCA Race Saver sprint race was pretty nuts.
That was good. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, Andy Paik kind of stole it from, oh, I think his name is Jacob Peterson. He's from the Sioux Falls, South Dakota area. He stole that one coming out of 4. And they like swapped the lead, like did slide jobs like that entire last lap. That was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Any other good finishes that y'all remember?
Not off the top of my head, and it's not like we don't see good racing. It's just been such a long time, but
I will say the Street Stock Tour finish at Jamestown was a good finish.
yeah, it was.
Yep, the Kyle Anderson and KCU status finish. Yep.
That was a good one. It's hard when you go like, well, for me, I went to over 80 races, so it's hard to pick out just a few from 80 race nights.
Yeah, it gets to be a lot for sure.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of much right now. But it's also almost 12, so that might be a slight issue too.
This is true. The last one we'll pick out from one of Casey's suggestion is Sportsman Award for honor off the track. Anyone stick out as far as sportsman?
Well, I mean, every track's got at least 4 to 5 people that all the drivers can point to and say, those are the guys. I mean, if you look at Dakota Speedway, Sean Strand's a pretty great sportsman there. He's benefiting and trying to help people, and
I'd say Travis Hagen's a really good sportsman too.
Yeah,
that'd be
Travis is a really good one,
especially because he wins a lot and he's very humble in victory lane. Whenever I see him or listen to an interview, very humble, very thankful to be racing such great competition. So he sticks out for me.
Yeah, I want to throw one out to kind of maybe one of the tracks too that we attend regularly, kind of in Jamestown. Um, there was a picture that was posted on Facebook earlier, if you're kind of towards the end of the year, where they caught, I believe it was Jim Morlock in the pits. He had two flat tires,
Mm.
and within that picture, you can point out about 4 or 5 drivers from different classes slash even it's that class itself that had been, out of the race, helping change those tires and running and grabbing their basically their jacks and wrenches and everything else to help change the tire and get him back on the track. So that's one thing about the racing community as a whole, I think, from the sportsmanship award, that a lot of people will help out and not even asked to help out. So that was one
Yeah.
thing too that is really cool to see that okay, if somebody pulls in pits, no matter I think what track it is, you always see a ton of crew members just kind of flood around that car, even if it's one of your competitors. For anything else, they will help you out.
Yep, and I think the last person I'd give a shout out to for sportsman would be Justin Vogel. I mean,
Mhm.
he helps out
Yes.
everyone. Like he'll get to the track like late, and he'll help someone work on their engine before he goes out onto the track. It's kind of like, hey, Justin, might want to get in your car. Your heat races up soon. That happens more often than you think. So Justin Vogel is definitely a guy I would think of for sportsman. So we just got a few awards to hand out. We'll go to Rookie of the Year. I know we gave a shout out to Rookie of the Year. Anyone that had a rookie season that stood out to you guys at all?
Well, like Justin mentioned, I mean, Tyler Peterson's late model rookie of the year season was outstanding. I mean, with how competitive he was and with how many, races he won and then how many big shows he won within the late model. I mean, he was leading the sites, unfortunately, got a little bit of damage with the cracker tire and ended up pulling off in that race with some front end damage, but he won the Minnesota 100. He took home the stock horse Stampede. I mean, those were just a few of the big races that he picked up this year, and yeah, he just had a heck of a season overall in his one TPO machine. So I would say he's probably one of them that had a great year from the rookie of the year perspective. So I'm gonna go with him. Mason, I'll let you go first, or let you go again before I go into another one. I've got a couple other ones.
The one that sticks out to me is Blake Adams. Like he really, especially towards the end of the year, started traveling quite a bit and getting a lot of feature wins. I think he's probably going to make a run. If I would have to guess based on the trajectory, he's probably going to make a run at national points heading into next year. And of course, his dad, Buzzy Adams, very accomplished racer himself. So I could see him kind of following in his footsteps as well and trying to get that national title now that Zach Benson's going to be moving up into a Wasota modified. And so I don't know what that national point title is going to look like because you got guys like Lucas Rodin and Brennan Waite who are in the top of national points, but they weren't really racing for national points. And so with as many miles as Blake Adams put on in his rookie season, I could see him doing that again and going for that national title. But he had a really good, solid 2023 rookie campaign. Jessup.
You guys got a lot of good ones. John took mine.
Yeah, sorry. Well, Kennedy Swan too. He had a great rookie of the year.
Yeah. But I'd still lean towards TPO.
It's hard to one TPO on the rookie of the year.
When you win a national or the Wasota championship while winning the rookie of the year for said class, yeah, it's tough to pass that.
I will give a shout out to a guy that kind of jumped back into racing and into a slightly different class, but Nick Schierick, he was pretty competitive in the wingless sprints.
Yep.
Like had a bunch of solid runs up in Devil's Lake and all around the state of North Dakota. So he was kind of, when I interviewed him before the year started, he's just like, yeah, it's probably gonna be a little rusty starting out, but it didn't take him long to kind of get used to running up towards the front. And so I give him a shout out for rookie of the year.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
So okay. So the other two I had, so I have to give a shout out to Gabe Shaw, first year in the IMCA stock cars, had a very nice year in the stock car division for his, picked up a big win down in Vegas, also picked up the win at the stock car Stampede, the $2,000 win for the stock cars over there. And then the other driver that I want to give a shout out to, who kind of transitioned into the mod class at the end of the basically 2022 season. Purchased a mod towards the end of the year, but really took off in the mods in 2023 with Caden Roberts. Caden Roberts had a really nice year in that 14 machine out of Dickinson. He picked up his first win over in Mandan in the IMCA modified division. That was his first win ever across the board. So he had a very nice rookie campaign as well.
Yeah, that is a great point because that race he won in Mandan, I think he led all the laps too, didn't he?
He did. Yep, he led every single lap.
And he was like far out in front. Like, I mean, I think Marlon was maybe catching him if I can remember correctly, but it would have taken a while to catch him.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that's rookie of the year. We'll go to frequent flyer. Who's your frequent flyer of the year? Basically, the way I kind of defined it was like a driver that put on a lot of miles and traveled all around for racing this summer.
Tucker Peterson.
That was one of mine.
He put on a ton of miles this year. Braden Brower, another driver that put on a ton of miles this year.
Dean Larson.
Yes. Yes, he
Dean
put on a
Larson.
ton of miles this year too.
He did. I'll give Casey Usatis a shout out. He raced a bunch this year and traveled all around for racing. So I'll give Casey a shout out there. Man, John took mainly the ones I had with the Browers and Tucker Peterson, because I think Tucker, I got to look this up. I think he had like 80 plus races on the year.
Yeah, he had a lot. He had a ton of races on the year.
It was right at 80 races.
Yeah, he put on a lot of miles every single weekend. I mean, you could even throw Trey Hess into that same mix because Trey had some engine problems towards the end of the year. But Trey was going around with Tucker when they were traveling together and they were putting on the miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other shout outs for freaking flyer?
Sure, we're
Let's
missing.
see.
What was that, Jessup?
I'm sure we're missing people here.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we are. Well, it's interesting too because like, like when you think about like WISSOTA racers, they kind of travel quite a bit, kind of like a little bit larger expansion area. IMCA drivers probably don't have as much opportunity unless you go like down to Arizona at the beginning of the year, which we have a ton of drivers that go down there. Have a ton of that are planning to go down to Arizona and just coming up in just a few weeks. And so if you count them as frequent flyers, there's definitely a few that would probably qualify for that as well. I know
Preston Martin would have to qualify. He drove all the way.
Preston drove a lot. Yep.
Yeah, so there's that one.
because he won a racing down in Iowa, I think, too, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you could throw Marcus Tomlinson in there as well.
You got it, especially I think was it his third consecutive state title?
No, wasn't it?
Count as one, too.
Wasn't it? I want to say it was his fifth, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's at least 5 in a row.
I was told from Adam Goff's mom that he's on a streak of 7 state titles when you combine hobby stocks and stock cars.
Ooh.
So he's on quite a streak there too.
Yeah.
5th consecutive for Marcus. 5th consecutive state title. So he definitely puts on the miles, and he usually makes a couple of trips down to Nebraska and all that too.
We checked and I was right.
Good job, John. You get a cookie.
We did the math, and I was right.
I was right. Well, I think we can wrap it up with one more award. We'll give a shout out with the white flag to Isaac Hot Sauce Sondrol, driver of the 12S IMCA Modified. We want to thank Isaac so much for joining us on the Track Packers this season as well. If you get to see Isaac at the racetrack or in his hometown of Turtle Lake, he's usually over at the Rusted Rail in Underwood. Be sure to stop by, say hi. Very entertaining guy to talk to. Very kind family. Will help you out in a pinch. Thank you so much, Isaac, for supporting us on the Track Packers this season. And our last award that we're going to give out is Driver of the Year. Who is your Driver of the Year for 2023?
Well, let's throw some names out here. We could go with Tyler Peterson. Tyler Peterson.
Tyler Peterson.
That's one name I would say. Preston Martin, Travis Hagan, Rob Van Mill, Pavlicek.
I was going to say Kyler Satrin was on my list.
Yep. So those are 6 names I think we could lump in there, and we'll let the band choose.
Yeah, I was going to say, how about we let them choose on who they think was their driver of the year?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Mason can make a real nice certificate and mail it to them.
Yes, he can use his graphic design skills.
They're not great. We
I
have a
would say
graphic
we get
designer on
Becca, but
staff.
not here.
Well, I say we normally have a graphic designer on staff that does all that stuff. It would be fun to be official.
Okay, so Mason, while on the screen then for this podcast, you'll have to list those 6 names I believe that we had mentioned.
Yeah, and all of them are, gosh, they had such a great year. I mean, you think about Pavlicek and Kyler Satrin, they had, I think, 3 track championships in their respective classes. And so it's hard to not put them at the top of the list. Also, Travis Hagen, I believe, had 3 track championships as well. So we had a really good year as far as, especially in the IMCA realms of people having some strong years. And like you mentioned, TPO, we've mentioned several times so far. Even like guys like Tucker Pearson that maybe didn't win a national title, but put on as many races as they did. Definitely put the work in to have a strong year as well. So, yeah. Any other shout outs you want to do before we wrap things up for our final episode of 2023? We are probably going to take a few weeks off before we get 2024 started. There's a bunch of rumors and stuff going around and schedules coming out.
Or are we going to do that for the CNC?
We're doing a what?
Or should we do the rumors and make the people pay for it on this controversially non-podcast?
Well, there's already been a lot of like changeover from the end of the season to now, and I'm sure we're going to find out more right after Christmas once everyone kind of has some time with their families, and then everyone gets kind of focused more on the drive towards spring and getting ready for the race season. So,
yeah, I want to start rumors. I don't want to start rumors. I want to just.
You're going to start rumors. I'm not surprised.
John's going to grow hair this year.
See, that's a great rumor.
That is, well, no, I'm not going to
give. I do have to give a final shout out across the board. I have to shout it out to fans, for each and every one of you for attending the races each and every week across the board at the racetracks, supporting your local tracks, touring series, all of those big events that you go to. It's more of a camaraderie thing than anything else. Also to the drivers, thank you for the countless hours that you put into your cars, into each and every one of your shops each and every night, time away from your families to do the sport that you love, but also go through and provide a platform of entertainment for each of us across the board, from not just a fan, but also, a track worker perspective, and even just, casual, first timer that maybe goes to the racetrack that sees it and sees your car paint scheme that might be all done, really, really, really flashy, and like, hey, I love that, and makes them a race fan for life. And then also to the tracks, the promoters and the track workers and personnel. We couldn't do any of the racing without each and every one of you as well to go through and put in countless hours. You probably definitely don't get as much credit as you deserve, because without basically preparing the tracks and going through and getting all, the sponsorships basically for each and every year, also going through and making sure concessions are filled, your beer stands are filled, you've got everything ready for working from the electrical side or anything else from the racetrack side. That's huge for each and every year. So thank you so much for the time and effort that you guys put into as well, because for a lot of the track owners out there, the track promoters, this is also a second kind of job that they have. A lot of them do have the full-time job before it. So again, thank you for the time and effort that you put into each one of those facilities, not just in the summertime, but also in the wintertime when you're prepping and planning and preparing for a lot of that great racing that we have throughout the coming season. So once again, great job to everybody out there, and have a great holiday season and a very Merry Christmas. Happy New Year's. Like Mason said, we probably won't reconvene until after the New Year. So yeah. So have a great season and spend some time with your friends and family.
That's very well said. Yeah, it's a lot of times a thankless job running a racetrack or whatever involvement you may have in racing, and it takes all of us to make it go around. And we're just happy to being on the Track Packers to kind of showcase some of that and give people shout outs throughout the season and throughout the off season, and excited to see what 2024 has in store. Jessup, do you have any closing thoughts?
Only thing that I can see right now is that the new Legendary Tour just posted their schedule for the 2024 inaugural tour, as it's going to take place that first week of June, basically. So it's going to coincide with a few races with the Tougher Than Dirt Tour, as it'll be June 4th in Underwood at the McLean County Speedway. June 5th will be over in Dickinson with the Southwest Speedway. Both of those nights are with the Tougher Than Dirt Tour. They will have an off day June 6th, and then they will be back over at Mandan June 7th at Dakota Speedway. June 8th will be at Jamestown Speedway, and June 9th they reconvene with the Tougher Than Dirt Tour, I think, in Minot at the Nodak Speedway. So just a quick shout out before this year ends to that tour. Good luck. It's always interesting to see how a tour functions and what all goes into it, besides just getting racers there along with sponsorship money and trying to attempt to create a positive buzz and all that other good stuff and hooey. And good luck, guys.
Yes, the inaugural legendary tour, not the first annual, right?
The first
Yes,
annual,
the inaugural.
that will upset Mason and John
It doesn't upset me.
and Becca.
It upsets Becca. So
I could see it upsetting Becca.
So when I announce for a couple of those races that come across the board, I'll be sure to announce it as the first annual, just for Becca.
Well, as the final closing thoughts, I want to thank everyone that's tuned into the Track Packers podcast, whether you're on the listening platforms or watching us on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you so much for the support. We've experienced a lot of growth this year. What?
I have one last question.
Uh-oh.
Mason, what is the running order right now?
Oh, gosh. I'm not going to let this down. Right now, it's Jessup, myself, and John. If Becca was
Jess
on
was
here,
ahead
she
to
was
end the year.
scheduled to be on the poll, but she was a DNS.
Yeah, she never showed up.
Blame Becca for this.
We're so
So,
disappointed.
I
So
guess-
race fans, podcast listeners, and everything else out there as well, if you have seen Becca, please report her back to the Track Packers podcast. She is missing. So if we need to, we'll do some Where's Becca t-shirts, maybe some coffee, mugs, maybe even milk cartons out there to see if we can, locate her. She is missing, unfortunately. So we'll have to find Becca before we reconvene here for the new year.
Absolutely. We got a ton of stuff in the works for 2024, growing a whole lot. Thank you for 1,000 followers on Facebook. We crossed that threshold in the last couple of weeks, so that's awesome to see. And of course, got to thank our sponsors, Hitch Harness, Tyler Hall. Thank you so much for jumping on board as the presenting sponsor, and also Isaac Hot Sauce Sondrol for jumping on board and supporting us as well. And so with that, I think that'll do it for episode number 37 of season 2. As always, be sure to like, share, and comment on our videos, Facebook and YouTube, and subscribe on Spotify, Google, and Apple. Hope everyone has a nice holiday season and end of 2023, and we'll see you in 2024, packing the track.